let's get into it with the headphone highlights. Alright. Today, we are wearing the Audio-Technica M40Xs. Come on, camera. There you go. Yep. There's an Audio-Technica logo right there. Woohoo. That's the good stuff. Another dynamic driver headphone. These are... I'm sorry. I gotta make sure I get the whole freaking name on these right, even if they are stupid names. The Audio-Technica ATH-M40x's. ATH-M40x's. ATH obviously just standing for Audio-Technica headphone. So, whatever. Yep. Another fancy. Yeah, they're pretty slick. Again, a very subtle design. I love subtle designs. They're plastic, so that means, of course, they're pretty light. It's good plastic, though. Good quality stuff. Headband's got... what would you call that? I guess it's like some sort of fake leather wrap around it. That's pretty soft to the touch. But otherwise, it's mostly plastic. Which I'll say should make them light. For the most part, does. They are... Audio-Technica is known for their impeccable build quality. And this is no exception. The build quality on these is pretty phenomenal. They feel extremely rugged for what they are. Even though they're this, light plastic, they feel super rugged. Very well built. Everything's very, precisely machined. Like, everything fits so nice, and the headband adjustment is very smooth and clicky, so you can really kind of, even it out and measure it up. Yeah, man, the build quality is really sweet. This is, I don't remember exactly what they called it. It's some sort of, limited edition gray color variant or whatever. Usually these are just, a jet black. But, yeah, they're really cool. Audio-Technica, they're on the headband. They use detachable cable, obviously. But they use the same... Come on, you. Yeah. The same connector termination, kind of weird connector termination that the Sennheiser 598s use, which is that weird, long, skinny, I think it's a 2.5 millimeter audio jack with the little, locking lip on there. So, not a huge fan of this particular type of cable connector, but it's fine for the most part. It just means you gotta make sure your cable always has this weird, long, skinny termination to fit it really down in there. Come on, it's limited edition. Give it some pizzazz. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like the gray. I was about to say maybe I would prefer the black, but I like the gray. I think it looks nice. It's a nice contrast with the other black accents on the headphone. They have some of the most wild range of movement. They can just do all sorts of shit. Look how they can fold up like that. And the cups can fold totally inside out, and it's just wackadoo. They can fold flat. They can just fold in all sorts of crazy ways. which is cool. It makes them a little bit more portable. Like, you can fold them up pretty snug, throw in a backpack, whatever. It does get a little irritating though sometimes, because like what just happened there. I don't know if you saw that. Let me show you. This is how they have to sit. That's the way they should be sitting. If I go to like pull this, it'll like flip over like that. Did you see that? So now this is flipping on outward, and when I see that, my immediate reaction is, oh, I need to twist it this way to get it back in the center. Uh-oh, why won't it twist anymore? Why won't it twist any further? What's going on? You gotta flip it back this way. It's just a weird little nitpicky thing. Which, you know, whatever, but it can get a little irritating for me when I'm like, if I put these down and I put them down in a way where I'm not paying attention, they just kind of like flop around or whatever, that can happen. I'm like, what's going on? Why won't my headphones flip over the way they need to? Just because it's got too much it can do. Oh my gosh. The pads on these are not the default pads. Big surprise, right? These are humongous ZMF cowhide pads. So they are real leather, and they are stiff boys. Very stiff pads. It's like an old leather couch, these pads. Like, stiff. They're soft, but they're stiff, firm cowhide pads. That was a recommendation for these that I read about, was to upgrade to these pads. Because the pads that these come with, a lot like with those modern retros that we had last time, the pads that these come with are pretty bad. They're pretty awful. I would not recommend... Again, I wouldn't recommend the Audio-Technica M series with their default pads. I don't find them comfortable whatsoever. They're way too small, they're way too thin, and these have not a huge amount of clamp or anything, but like when you get to there, that's quite a lot of force to separate them. And to get them like head width like that there, that's a lot of force. So that's a good amount of clamp. So having teeny tiny little skinny dinky pads is just not comfortable. So I did go with the cowhide pads as was recommended, but I'm going to explore more on that. I'm not entirely convinced that this is the way to go with these cowhide pads, because as nice as they are super crazy high quality pads, and they ain't cheap, let me tell you. But because they're so firm, and the clamp on these are pretty significant, it's not the most comfortable thing. Putting them on, even that out a little bit. If you just go and put them on, it feels like there's quite a lot of pressure, like right here on your jawline. That's a bad place for pressure to be on with a headphone. It goes away, right? After I wear this for a few minutes, I don't really feel it anymore. It doesn't bother me. But the first initial putting them on and like getting them snug on my head and letting them go, it's like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like how that feels right here on my jawline. So that's not super comfortable. And I do think it's just because the pads are very firm and the clamp on these is pretty good. Pretty forceful clamp. So I'm thinking if I get something a lot more softer and plush, it would help with the comfort for sure. But of course, it's going to have to just be an experiment because pads can significantly change your sound signature. Yeah, they look like old sofa leather, exactly. And they feel like it too. It's just like old, stiff couch leather. It really, really is. And it smells it too. It smells like an old couch. And they're super nice pads, man. They're just a little too firm with the amount of clamp that these have for my taste. But still significantly better than the default pads. And benefit, so a complaint that a lot of people have with these headphones, this line of headphones. I'm going to back it up just a little bit more. These are the M40Xs. There are another member of the M family, the M50Xs, which are way better and well known. They're like a tier above this, supposedly. And people will rave and rave about those. But it's kind of one of those things where they're really loved and they're very popular, but not necessarily for the right reasons. More like they're popular because it's what everyone has, kind of thing. I mean, yeah, the 50s are. It's hard for me to say it. I know people love the 50s. They talk about the detail retrieval on them. They talk about the mid-range and the satisfying low end on them. I can't enjoy the M50s. The treble response on them is painful. The sibilance, just like sibilance murder with the 50s. So no thank you. I heard the 40s were a bit more controlled with the higher frequencies, and they absolutely are. The 40s, even stock, sounded for me so much better than the 50s. And if you start looking into it, you're going to see a lot of like real serious nerdy audio headphone people will say, forget the 50s, get the 40s. 40s are what you want. And I agree with them. I think the 40s sound better. The 40s here are actually very neutral. They're not as neutral as the 6XXs, surprise, surprise. But for a closed back, they are fully closed, a closed back headphone, they're very neutral. And not in a boring way. It's a very true, honest sound signature. So very good referencing headphones. But again, the pads that come with are really bad. They're not comfortable. So you have to upgrade the pads. And the problem is that you don't want your pads to change the sound on them too much. Because, you know, you get them because they're neutral, but they're clean. They have a real satisfying not punchy, but a very real, true and honest low end. Now, I'm not trying to say that the low end isn't impactful. It absolutely can be, but it's not a rumbly, muddy type of low end that feels artificial. Like it's just like hitting it too hard and drowning other things out. It's very, very clean on these. So you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to mess up that sound signature. So you want to get better pads, but you don't want your pads to mess with the sound too much. So, you know, that's why I went with these, because in what I've heard and what I've seen about adding the modification is it makes them, you know, more comfortable, but it doesn't affect the sound signature. And that's mostly true for the most part, like 99% true. With these pads, it still sounds pretty much the same as it did stock. So it sounds great, sounds fantastic for very neutral referencing headphones. But now, because the pads are so huge, you got a little bit of soundstage on there too. And I like me some soundstage. So, yeah, they're closed back. So you got that passive noise isolation like with the retros from last time, same deal. I can't really hear anything around me. Talking, you know, my own voice sounds really muffled. And yeah, it's giving me a little bit of sound stage, not a tremendous amount. It's like around here. So the pads do help, but like I said, I want to try looking around, seeing if I can find more comfortable pads that can hopefully do about the same as this, not change the sound, but make it more comfortable. Because the downside to these, we're going to get into the cloud comfort scale now, is they're not the worst. They're not the most uncomfortable headphones by any means. Yeah, comfort is worth experimenting, for sure. And these really do need to be examined for some better comfort options, because it's not great. It's fine. It's just not... It's not as good as I feel like it should be, because they're very light, mostly. They're made of plastic, so they should be very light. The problem is with pretty much the headband. Headband's pretty bulky, pretty heavy, and unfortunately, I don't know why they did this, but there is almost nothing underneath here to give you any padding for comfort. There's literally nothing. I am pinching that. There's nothing there. There's no padding at all. So you're gonna get some hot spots on your head wearing these, and that sucks. Because a lot of people are very sensitive to that. Kat, for example, she can't wear these because she's very sensitive to the top of her head, and she can't stand it. And I don't blame her. It's not comfortable. It's just kind of like, for me, it doesn't bother me that much. Nowhere near as much as it bothers Lady Marslander. But I can still tell there's something hard and flat on the top of my head. It's not soft and comfortable. I notice it. And then the pressure from the clamps, while it does, go away after a while, you stop recognizing it. Your initial response is probably not going to be super positive, because it does clamp pretty hard. So all that considered, comfort. Let's see. Because I want everyone to understand that I gave the Sennheisers a 6 out of 10 for comfort. 6 is still very good comfort. All right, for something to be like, oh my god, I don't want to wear this in terms of discomfort, it needs to be very, very low. I mean, if you're in the mid-range, if you're at like around a 5 or a 6, that's still pretty good, right? It's still like, yeah, it could be better, but I can wear this and I'm willing to sit here and play a game, listen to some music, whatever, without feeling like I want to throw my headphones into the wall. So when I say something is a 5 out of 10, I'm giving these a 5 out of 10 for comfort. It's still pretty good. A 5 is still, for me, perfectly good. Still perfectly serviceable. So I don't want anyone to think that because I'm giving them a 5 that they're bad. This isn't like, an IGN gaming rating system where anything that's below a 7 is considered trash. 5 is still good. It's still good. It's not bad. We're not into bad yet. It just could be better. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, because I really do think that they could improve it. And I'll experiment on it, and I'll let you know if I find a better solution. Because I think they deserve it. Because going back into, suck on that shade, IGN. Suck on that shade, IGN. Yeah. But they deserve it. They deserve another look for comfort because, again, the sound on these is wonderful. Surprisingly neutral. You could easily use these as a reference headphone. Easily. And they're closed. So, you know, if you're in a studio environment and you want to make sure that you aren't having the ambient noise in your room or in your office or your studio or whatever interfering with your referencing, you're going to want closed back headphones. Well, these are a very good solution for that. Because they really are. They're very, very true. Very neutral. Very clean. And these pads, as I said before with the M50s, treble response is too much for me. It's sibilance. These still suffer a tiny, tiny bit with that. The high end on these is still very bright, but with the pads it helps. It controls it just a smidge, just like the highs on this are like 1.8 to 2% too high. And that's only on some songs, whatever. Otherwise, it sounds fantastic. And I can't think of a better way to explain how they sound and why it's so fantastic. Despite how I probably sound like not particularly positive about these right now, I probably sound like I'm not giving them a whole lot of praise. Well, here's some praise. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2017 trailer. That for me is one of the best game trailers I've ever seen. I love that trailer. So up front, I already love the trailer, and I get emotional watching it. Like, it really ramps it up for me. But it's an old trailer. It's from 2017, and I've seen it dozens and dozens of times. So when I tell you that I watched that trailer last night, just for the purpose of testing these, I watched that trailer last night, and a little bit more than the midway point of the trailer, the music quiets down, and then it starts to build up, and then it blasts you with the Legend of Zelda theme. This beautiful, heroic, amazing rendition of the Zelda theme. It made me cry. Like, it sounded so good with these. And that's just a freaking YouTube compressed trailer that I've seen dozens of times before. And these made me feel emotional again with that trailer. They bring out so much presence in what you're listening to. Yeah, it's high praise when the sound can make you cry. It brings out so much presence. It just... like, I'm not even sure what it is, honestly. I mean, they are very... the detail is really good. The imaging we talked about before, the imaging on these is really nice. The low end is very precise. It hits when you need it to hit. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't drown out your mid-range. So you still have all that detail. You hear those horns. You hear that timpani. And you hear those violins go from like nothing, and they build up, and they just sharp at the top. You hear every piece of it. It's just amazing. It was an amazing experience last night with these. And that's why I was like, damn, I need... Because I'll admit that the whole week wearing these wasn't the most pleasant week for me. Because, again, they're not as easy to just pick up and put on and go do my thing like I can with my other headphones. I need to kind of warm up to them. I need to put them on and go, okay, yeah, they're a little tight, whatever, give it a minute. And then when I stop thinking about it and stop noticing it, then I can go and do my thing. And I was listening to my usual library of music, and I was like, yeah, this sounds super neutral, very flat, very even, very true, very honest. It's great. But for whatever reason, man, watching that trailer last night was just like the perfect combination of things. So, I mean, that's as much praise as I can give them, really. They're great. They're fantastic. And this is another situation like the K7XXs where I haven't really worn them that much for a long time. And it was really cool to get back into it and find a reason, find something that's like, that really brings out how good they can be. Like the perfect combination for them. Because, yeah. That was a great experience. So yeah, they're great. Man, we really have been doing mostly open backs, haven't we? Dang. The only other open backs we've looked at are the DT-177Xs and the Modern Retros. So these aren't up to the tier of the 1770s. But they are easily one of the best closed back, neutral sounding, true, honest studio monitoring headphones that you can get for about $100. That's all they are, $100. Full disclosure, the ZMF pads, they ain't cheap. I can't remember exactly how much they were, either somewhere between $50 to $75. So they're very top tier pads. Try watching the trailer with... Yeah, well... So I could do that. I could try watching that trailer with the 1770s, but I could tell you that it's not going to be the same. Because the 1770s, you know, they're a bombastic time. They're a bombastic, crazy, fun headphone. But what they lack is the intimacy that you get with these. Intimacy. The detail... It doesn't have better detail than the DTs. It's just a more intimate experience. A more honest experience. Because you're hearing that music closer to the way it was intended to sound with these than you do with the 17.7Xs. 17.7Xs outperform these in a lot of ways, but they just don't have the same honesty and they don't have the same intimacy. That was a very intimate experience with the Audio-Technicas. I might get a similar reaction if I'm listening to the HT6XXs with that trailer. I could see that for sure, because those are even more honest, more true. Well, but you know, but then again, I feel like the low end on the 6XXs might not be as... No. 6XXs still would outdo these, but they're twice as much. So, for $100, closed, neutral headphones, these are a great option. If you want to be a big freaking dork and get teary-eyed by watching a Legend of Zelda trailer from 4 years ago, then there you go. Trying to think if there's anything else I could say about them. Yeah, I mean, I guess that pretty much sums it up. They're great. I haven't heard them for a long time, so once again, it's nice to be reminded why I have them, why they're great. So, and why it's so important for me to, like, I want to find those more comfortable pads, but I don't want that sound to change. Yes, sound is very powerful. Yes, it is. Especially music. So, yeah, man. Audio-Technica M40Xs. They're pretty great. Oh boy. Okay. Let's get on back into it.